हृदि निरन्तरं भावि स्वयं लिप्यते हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं नाममात्रम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा चिन्ता मज्जता चलनरूप आत्मनिष्ठो देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तथ भावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः ओहं भावयुतः कुतो रथिय दृष्टात्मनिष्ठा मनं सोऽपितया हरिणा चल शिवः पूर्ण विभाति सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति Namo Ramana. In this, the Thursday satsang from Ramanacentre Center for Learning, it has been our practice to select two verses from the work Guru Vachaka Kove. The work is in the form of verses rendered by Muruganar Swamigal. The two verses are selected at random by Revatima. Each verse is read and the verse reading is followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that is followed by the practice of self-enquiry for about 15 minutes. After these two segments of verse reading, meditation on its meaning, and the practice of Atma Vichara are completed, there will be summing up remarks from Venkatesh Deshpande, and that will be followed by the offering of Sri Ramana Stotram. The chanting will be by Vaibhavji and Prarthnama online, and the floral offerings will be by the floral offerings will be by Manjunath, from right here. We commence the satsang by taking up the first verse selected for us, verse number 42. Verse number 42 is in the first segment, that is investigation into truth. The second segment is the meditation on the truth, and the third is the anubhava or experience of the truth. The verse 42 we find in the first segment under the subsegment, the reality of the world. Verse 42, one's true nature is consciousness, the supreme. One's true nature is consciousness, the supreme. When the mind is extinguished in that self, the three Shaktis, beginning with Icha, Kriya, and Jnana, which are said to exist, will completely cease, being known to be an unreal superimposition upon the perfectly pure consciousness that is one's true nature. One's true nature is consciousness, the supreme. When the mind is extinguished in that self, the three Shaktis, beginning with Icha, which are said to exist, will completely cease, being known to be an unreal superimposition upon the perfectly pure consciousness that is one's true nature. The question of Shakti or power arises only when there is two. When there are two selves, one can try to control the other, or one can try to overpower the other. But then, when we inquire into the nature of the consciousness, the second or the non-self is completely eliminated. So there is no question of any kind of power, any kind of Shakti. So there is no need to desire anything, Icha Shakti. There is no need to create anything new. That will be Kriya Shakti. There will be no need to know anything apart. That will be Jnana Shakti. All the three will be rendered unnecessary in the self alone is. When one is abiding as the self of all, where is the need for power? Even the power to shine as I is subsiding into the self alone is, Bhagavan says, like the fire that has lit camphor. After completely burning all the camphor, how the fire will quieten down. Like that, this Purana, after washing away the I am the body idea completely, will also quieten into the self. That means in that self, there is no necessity even for a self-reflective power. There is no Jnana Shakti required called self-knowledge. Being the self itself is knowing the self. So all the three Shaktis, Icha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Jnana Shakti, are rendered unnecessary and moreover are merged in the self of all. That self alone is, it includes everything. It includes all kinds of Shaktis, but then it itself is beyond the necessity for any kind of Shakti. That is what is mentioned here. That's why when Bhagavan is asked how to control the mind, Bhagavan will always say, inquire for whom is this mind, inquire into the true nature of the mind, then there will be no mind to control when self alone is. The mind is the non-self as far as the self is concerned. All non-self is eliminated in self-attention. So the mind is non-existent in the self. Where is the necessity to control it? Bhagavan would ask. So that is where we are going in the practice of Atma-Ucharam, where there is no other for one to exercise control or feel greater than or feel subservient to. The self alone, the consciousness alone is. Let us sit in Atma-Ucharam for 15 minutes. Ujjwalji, you can set the time for us.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We continue by taking up the second verse selected for us, verse number 688. 688 is in the segment meditation on the truth. We find it in the subsegment conquest of the mind and senses. Meditation on the truth, conquest of the mind and the senses, verse 688. The ego is the identification with the body that is composed of 5 elements. The ego is the identification with the body that is composed of 5 elements. When through the death of that ego, you refuse to take upon yourself, the self, the afflictions that are associated with the body through the 5 elements, and when becoming indifferent to them, you cast those afflictions aside. That indeed is the conquest of the 5 elements. The Panchabhutas appear to be so vast and so much deep into time that we seem to be so puny as this body made of 5 elements when we identify. See the word, how the word identify comes, it's identical. Identical means one with. Therefore, this is the highest form of attachment. The consciousness, which is actually immortal, has in this particular instance treated itself as identical with the body made of the Panchabhutas. The body is a fragment of this whole space in which the Panchabhuta display is there. And of this fragment, we have gone and identified ourselves as this is me. I am identical with this limited body. So, what is the conquest of the Panchabhutas that are so huge and spread over so much of time? The ego is the identification with the body that is composed of 5 elements. When through the death of that ego, when through enquiry, the very ego principle is transcended, the very mind principle is transcended, you refuse to take upon yourself, the self, the afflictions that are associated with the body through the 5 elements. So, though the body is there, the consciousness is free of the identity because of natural self-attention. And when one is free of this body, which is made of 5 bhutas, panchabhutas, 5 elements, one is automatically freed from association with all the afflictions that appear in the panchabhuta creation. You become indifferent to them. You cast those afflictions aside. Then indeed, that indeed is the conquest of the 5 elements. We usually say that finding out new countries, going out on new trekkings, going out to heights previously not gone, sending out rockets into space. This is man's conquest of 5 elements, we say. But Bhagavan is saying here, the actual conquest of 5 elements is to free the consciousness from treating it as identical with the body. I am this body. This identity has to be freed up by self-enquiry. For whom is this? When that self-attention frees itself of the conditioning of the 5 elements made body, it has transcended all the 5 elements. This is actually what was earlier called as the victory over the Panchabhutas, the world of 5 elements. Instead of conquering sea separately, space separately, fire separately, together all the 5 elements are transcended. by the simple act of removing this identity with this body made of 5 elements. So automatically the mental identities are also freed off. So both the shackles are off. And one realizes that this self-attention, which is natural, this includes everything and transcends everything. There is nothing further to be done. One is one with Bhagwan, who has conquered all the 5 elements. Bhagavan Swarupa is the Atma Swarupa. When one drops all the association with the body made of 5 elements, one is oneself identical with the self of all, which is Bhagavan Swarupa, which is our Swarupa, which is the real Swarupa of the world also. Let us sit in Atma Vicharam for the next 15 minutes, freeing oneself of this identity with the body. Thank you, Deep.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
May I request Venkatesh ji to give us the summing up remarks. Namo Ramana sir.
Namo Ramana. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jnanamulam Guru Murti Pujamulam Guru Padam Mantramulam Guru Mokshamulam Guru Kripa Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. So, if you look at how devotees, when they used to come to Bhagwan, what used to happen? When Bhagwan, they used to have lot of these questions, lot of desires, and then they would come and sit in front of Bhagwan. And then what happened? The questions were there, but then they would, because of Bhagwan's silence, these questions would suddenly evaporate. They were like superimpositions. No, that they would realize only later, the devotees would realize, but at that point, at that moment, because of the silence, Bhagwan's silence, all the questions would just evaporate. And some people won't even remember why they came to Bhagwan, what were the questions they wanted to ask Bhagwan. Because what happened, they were in touch with themselves. They were in touch with who they really are. So then when they came out, when they would come out of the hall, oh my God, I had these questions I had to ask Bhagwan, I forgot to ask them. So next time I go in front of Bhagwan, I'll ask the questions. And they would come there and the same situation would happen. That the questions would evaporate, superimpositions would vanish, and they would be with the self. Similarly, if you look at the second verse that has been chosen, this body is 70% water, that we identify with, is 70% water. And then the other 30% of the other elements. Now, we think we are this body, which is made up of these elements, these 5 elements. But when you do self-enquiry, or you do Vensamai, when you say, who am I, do you actually go to the body? Or you say, whence am I? From where is the I thought rising and going and merging there? From where is it rising? Is it, again, are you in the body? The physical body? No. You are not looking at these hands, these legs, and all these things. You are going beyond the elements, the 5 elements. We're going into that silence. We're going into the self. Every time we do it, it may be for a fraction of a second. Whenever you say, who am I? You go in deep in and you experience the silence. And again you come out and again experience the body and these 5 elements. So the trick is to always be antarmukha, to always be abiding in the self. When you're abiding in the self, then what happens? You are no more holding on to this body. Trigunatita, you become a Trigunatita. You're beyond Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. You're beyond all those 3, which are related to the body. So Bhagavan's trying to tell us the same thing. That more and more we go inwards, more and more we try to understand who we really are, more and more we are in touch with the self, Brahman, and the stillness which is within, then what happens? All these external things just drop off. These bodies drop off, these 5 elements drop off, these questions drop off, The superimposition, Ishtamu, all these Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti, all the Shaktis also, they all vanish because in the self, they're all superimpositions. So that's why self-inquiry is so very important to be able to be with the self. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, sir. Thank you very much. Namo Ramana. May I request Vaibhavji and Pratnama to do the chanting of Ashtotram for us. Namo Ramana.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमोत्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ महासेन महोंसेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महौजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितुराधीशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसम्रम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूलिकाखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः ॐ दक्षिणास्य निधाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजे नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईड्याय नमः भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः ॐ आप्ताय नमः ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः ॐ समदृशे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्भोतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः ॐ गणेशमुनिवृन्देन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः ॐ सौम्याय नमः ॐ आत्मवते नमः ॐ सर्वावलिपदस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शूर्णाद्रिशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगभिषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानो अरुणाचलस्य पदयोः सुविद्याजलिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रह सुप्रवाहं सादात्म्यभावं गतः निर्दिष्टस्वगभीर नित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनः तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तर ज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगिये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಯ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೂಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಗಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय
जय
ನಮೋ ರಮಣ ಅಕ್ಕ, ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
नमो रमना, नमो रमना. Thank you.
Namo Ramana, Venkatesh, wonderful summing up.